Thank you so much, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this webinar. Of course, as Park Hendra said, we will be talking about the coal markets in the next 15 minutes or so. Uh, of course, I will be giving a global picture of our coal market outlook, but of course, the JKT market and the Indonesian supply will be an integral part of what we will be discussing in the next 15 minutes. All right, so without further ado, I will just quickly kickstart my presentation and just a very quick update on who we are. CRU Group, of course, I'm representing my company, CRU Group. We've been around for more than 50 years. There are mainly four pillars of business. One is regular market analysis that we do on commodity markets. Second is price assessments. Third is consulting, which I'm representing today. And of course, fourth is events. So in consulting, of course, we specialize in advising our customers on strategy development, asset and project valuation, and of course, carrying out due diligence for various policy and other supporting activities. As I mentioned, CRU has been around for more than 50 years. Our experience allows us to kind of analyze nearly any element on the periodic table, as you can see on the screen. And of course, not only this, we also have a dedicated team of analysts that cover the metallurgical coal and thermal coal markets. So without further ado, just a very quick snapshot of how prices have behaved in the thermal coal market in the last 1 month or so. I won't be getting into the details of this. I'm assuming most of us already know what's happened. The clear messaging that we are getting here is that thermal coal markets have been very, very buoyant. Coal prices have increased significantly throughout the complex in the last couple of months. Of course, we've seen very, very strong demand from China. After the pandemic struck there in February, there's a very strong rebound in China, and that story has virtually continued throughout the rest of the period. Another thing important to note here is that the domestic Chinese market has been extremely tight. And not to forget, JKT markets have had a huge role to play as well in this recent price swing. The cold spell in Japan and Korea, led to, of course, extremely high LNG gas prices, which of course spurred to the coal markets as well. I think sometime in January, the LNG spot prices were trading close to $30, which probably is an all-time record. So that just goes to show how much, energy was required to be met from the coal market. And as a result of that, thermal coal prices have been extremely strong most of the last couple of months. Another very important theme that a lot of us might have heard in the market is the recent trade tensions between Australia and China. As you can see in this chart, Australia used to comprise of almost 20% of coal supplies on the seaborne market to China. However, since the import restrictions were carried out, especially in October, you can see that coal exports from Australia to China virtually went to zero in December. However, one of the big beneficiaries of this trade tension between the two countries has been Indonesia. So just look at to what extent the Indonesian exports to China have increased in December, when China kind of relaxed the import restrictions on countries outside of Australia. So throughout the year, of course, Indonesian exports were almost range bound, but in December we saw a huge uptick in Indonesian exports to China. Again, long story short, the story that I'm trying to paint here is that while we think that a permanent ban on Australian coal by the Chinese authorities will be unlikely, but at least in the short term, we are seeing very, very strong demand for Indonesian coal from the Chinese buyers. And this chart is testimony to that. As you can see that in December, imports by China of Indonesian coal were very, very strong. Of course, one would imagine that since Australian coal has been restricted by China, Australian coal producers would suffer. That hasn't really happened, at least on the thermal coal market. I would say that Australian met coal producers have suffered more than Australian thermal coal producers, because a lot of this demand increment has been absorbed by Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. So as you can see, despite the very, very strong restrictions on Australian coal, coal exports from Australia have actually increased in December, which again stems due to very, very strong demand from Japan and Korea. So at least for now, Australian producers have been safeguarded by extremely strong demand that we are seeing from the JKT market. Again, a very quick snapshot of what we are projecting might happen in seaborne trade in 2021. We already know that 2020 was a dismal year, not only for thermal coal trade, but for various other commodities as well. Global thermal coal trade fell significantly. However, we are expecting that 2021 will be better, but only marginally. So our forecast is that global thermal coal imports will increase by about 27 million tons in 2021. The biggest gains, of course, will come from India and Southeast Asia. But again, the JKT market, as we have already seen, is strong, will also exhibit positive growth for thermal coal this year. In terms of supply, as I already said, Indonesia seems to be one of the beneficiaries of the recent spat between Australia and China in terms of their coal trade. So we do predict that Indonesian exports will see the strongest growth in 2021. Colombian exports will also increase, but remember that will be from a very low base. Colombian coal production last year was hampered due to strikes and various other reasons. So therefore, although Colombian coal exports are increasing, they're only increasing from a very strong base, a very low base. But Indonesian exporters seem well poised to kind of meet up for most of the demand improvement that we are predicting this year. Also, another thing that I like to mention here is that if I don't have that chart on my slide deck today, but I was just having a look at a couple of analysis that one of my colleagues have done. So if I just plot the global thermal coal industry cost curve, at current prices, I saw that about 85 to 90% of the thermal coal producers are generating positive margins, or in other words, they are either able to break even, or in other words, they are making very strong profits at current prices. And for those reasons, we do think that Indonesian producers as well will be able to kind of lift production quite comfortably, because currently we are in a favorable pricing environment. So long story short, the biggest gains to come from Indonesian supply this year. Just moving on, just shifting gears and moving over to the JKT market, especially Japan and South Korea. As the moderator already said, that coal is an integral part of their energy mix. It of course comprises of more than 30% of their total power generation mix. In the last few years, of course, thermal coal has been a very, very important source of energy for baseload power generation. However, yes, in the coming years, things might change slightly. First of all, however, I would like to clarify that our projections for 2021 are still positive for the JKT region. As you can see from the table below, we expect Japanese thermal coal imports to increase by 5 million tons in 2021, whereas South Korean thermal coal imports could stay flat. In the medium term, one question that might arise is that what is causing thermal coal imports to fall? First of all, if we just focus on Japan, the country has pledged to go carbon neutral by 2050. That in itself clearly means that there will be less room, or not a lot of room, for coal to be in the power generation mix. Secondly, nuclear generation poses quite a bit of a threat to the Japanese power mix as well. If my primitive understanding is correct, of the 60 nuclear reactors in Japan, only 9 are currently operating. However, Japan has succinctly stated that an increasing share of nuclear generation in their power mix will be critical if they have to meet their 2050 targets of going carbon neutral. So we do believe that there is some upside for nuclear generation in Japan, which will curtail coal-fired generation. And not to forget, in a drive to go carbon neutral, renewables will be the biggest beneficiary. And that is what we are predicting, that at least in the next 5 years, renewable capacity in Japan and new renewable generation in Japan will increase significantly, which although will not provide base load, it will still kind of lead to some disruption for coal-fired power generation. Gas and nuclear modes of power generation remain the biggest threats to the Japanese power mix in the next 5 years. So due to these reasons, we are predicting that Japanese thermal coal imports will actually fall from about 120 million tons in 2021 to about 98 million tons in 2025. When it comes to South Korea, their strategy is slightly different to Japan because South Korea is not a big fan of having nuclear generation in their power mix either. So yes, the plan is to phase out nuclear power generation gradually in South Korea, but we think that that will happen gradually, and coal-fired generation will be the first one to suffer in South Korea. I think the government authorities have already been very clear that they want to convert about 20-25 coal-fired power units into gas-fired power units in the next 7 to 8 years. And just like Japan, South Korea remains very, very optimistic in terms of their renewable energy targets as well. So overall, yes, while 2021 might be a good opportunity for Indonesian producers to ramp up supplies to the JKT region, but eventually, because of the government policies and because of the reasons that I just stated, we do think that thermal power generation, especially coal-fired power generation, is facing quite a bit of headwinds in these regions. If I was to just very quickly give a bird's eye view of the global thermal coal trade, we do not think that global thermal coal trade will contract. In fact, it will increase by about 4% in the next 5 years. And of course, the biggest increases will come from Southeast Asia and South Asia, particularly India. So the decreases in Europe and JKT will be more than offset by emerging economies such as Southeast Asia and India, which means that thermal coal trade will increase by about 4%. In terms of supply, we are actually predicting that Indonesian supply will, or rather Indonesian exports will fall off slightly because of competition from other low-cost producers such as Australia and Russia, and also because of growing domestic demand in Indonesia. So for now, the biggest chunk of supply growth that we are forecasting in the next 5 years, 4 years is from Russia. But there is a challenge there as well, which I will explain in a few moments from now. All right, so I did mention that we are predicting very strong supply growth from Russia in the next 5 years. But for somebody who's been, if any of you has been following the Russian authorities, there have been a bit of contradicting statements that have come about from the Russian Ministry of Economy and the Russian Ministry of Energy. So the yellow bars on your screen denote Ministry of Energy's projection of coal supply in Russia in the long term, whereas the blue bars denote the Ministry of Economy's forecast of coal supply in the coming years. And you can clearly see that there's a big contradiction. While Ministry of Energy is implying that coal production in Russia will continue to increase significantly, Ministry of Economy has actually significantly downgraded their expectations of coal supply from Russia. Big reason behind that is that Russian Railways is a big revenue generator, of course, for Russia. And Russian Railways has been suffering because it has been offering huge subsidies to thermal coal producers in Russia in order to supply coal. Since coal prices were relatively low, not too far back, but the health of the Russian coal producers wasn't that great. And in order to support them, the Russian Railways were offering significant subsidies to thermal coal producers, especially, not that much to met coal producers. So as a result of that, Ministry of Economy feels that if again the thermal coal prices fall in the coming years, this subsidy policy of the Russian Railways will not be sustainable. And for those reasons, they are saying that Russia's coal supply growth might not be as strong as the Ministry of Energy is forecasting it to be. However, if we just talk about things that are happening on the ground, one of the big challenges that Russia faces is to kind of shift its infrastructure from west to the east, because of course Europe is slowing down, and JKT and other emerging economies is the one that Russia really wants to focus on. As a result, there's a need for a lot of port capacity to be built, a lot of rail capacity to be upgraded in Russia. We do think that that is happening, although not at a very rapid pace. And while our market participants have told us that yes, there has been a lot of progress that has taken place, we also remain conservative in predicting our upside for Russian supplies. But this is just something that we wanted everybody to be aware of, because if Russian supply doesn't kind of generate the kind of numbers that the Ministry of Energy is predicting, then again it will be a positive for Indonesia as well. Because in Asia, Indonesian producers will pretty much be competing with Australian and Russian supplies. Not to forget, there's not a lot of new greenfield capacity that is coming online in Australia. That's a good sign for Indonesian producers. The biggest threat for them was supposed to be Russian producers. And now this is a very new development that there's been a bit of a contradiction. So this will make for some interesting viewing in the coming years. I think this is my second last slide. I'll try to wrap it up in another couple of minutes. One question that we get asked a lot is that are banks backing out of financing coal mines? It's no secret that coal has a bit of an image problem. If you just read the articles that are printed by international media, it has a bit of an image problem. Coal doesn't get a lot of good publicity. And as a result, a lot of stakeholders have been predicting the death of coal for quite a few years. But if we just look at the exact numbers, for now at least, or at least between 2016 and 2019, that has told us a different story. So essentially, I've plotted a chart of international banks and their exposure to coal mining between 2016 and 2019. And as you can see, most of the banks increased their exposure to coal mining between 2016 and 2019, which goes against popular opinion. One reason behind this is also that coal prices were very strong between say 2017 and early 2019. So that just incentivized lending to the coal miners. Again, the story that I'm trying to paint here is that even after the Paris climate deal, as people were predicting that financing to coal miners will stop, it did not happen until 2019. But we think that 2020 has been a bit of a landmark year, as a lot more of the countries have actually pledged to go carbon neutral, and a lot more asset management companies and banks have specifically targeted thermal coal. If you talk about met coal and thermal coal, the people like BlackRock and some other asset management companies have succinctly stated that they are now not in favor of financing thermal coal mines, but met coal producers are still okay. So we think that while financing did not stop until 2019, 2020 has been a bit of a landmark year, and from now it won't be easy to get access to capital, especially if you're a pure play coal producer. So what that means is that we think that the thermal coal market balance could actually become tighter in the next 4 or 5 years, because I already said that the demand for thermal coal imports is slated to increase by about 4%. Whereas, as more countries are pledging to go carbon neutral, of course, a lot of expansion is taking place in renewables, and in some countries in nuclear generation as well. And coupled with the fact that banks and asset management companies are going to go very hard, and they're going to tighten lending to the coal sector. For those reasons, we do not think a lot of additional greenfield or even brownfield coal supply will come online in the coming years, which will relatively tighten the market, which according to our analysis would again bring the Newcastle 6000 index to average close to $90 per ton in the medium term.
Okay,
last
minute. Yeah,
yes. Very quick slide on met coal. Long story short, what we are trying to imply here is that the demand for met coal will increase at a more rapid pace than thermal coal in the medium term. I don't have time to explain this in detail. If you remember, we are predicting thermal coal demand to increase by about 4% demand for imports. If you just compare that to its cousin, which is met coal, we are predicting that global met coal imports will increase 13%, driven by increases from India and Southeast Asia. Unlike thermal coal, the JKT market will stay relatively flat in the medium term for met coal demand. That's all that I had to say. Thank you so much, everybody. Happy to take any questions if you have.